In 1963, a man in central Turkey knocked down a wall in his basement. He wasn't looking for anything. He was only renovating his home. Behind the wall, there was no earth. There was a room, then a corridor, then a stairway cut straight into the rock, going down, deeper than any basement had any reason to go. What he'd found wasn't a cellar. It was the edge of a city with no sky, no sunlight, built for thousands of people who once lived here. Unseen. Today it's called Derinkuyu, and it's just one of more than 200 underground settlements discovered beneath this single region of Turkey. It's connected, deep underground, to at least one other city nearby, through a tunnel long enough to walk for hours without ever seeing daylight. Before we explain what it is, sit with this question. What frightened an entire civilization enough to build a city where sunlight never reached? Cappadocia sits in central Turkey, where ancient volcanic ash compressed into a soft stone called tuff, soft enough to carve by hand, and once exposed to air, it hardens. That single geological fact made almost anything possible here. Surveys began soon after the discovery, and the deeper they went, the larger the city became. 18 levels, nearly 90 meters down, space for around 20,000 people, along with their livestock, their food, and their water. This wasn't a hiding place for a few families. It was infrastructure, built for a population the size of a small city, and maintained across generations who never stopped adding to it. Every new survey has confirmed the same pattern. Whoever built this didn't dig once and stop. They kept expanding it, level after level, over what appears to have been centuries. 20,000 people can't survive underground without air, water, and food that lasts. The builders solved all three, with tools no more advanced than stone and iron. More than 50 ventilation shafts move air through every level, without any mechanical help, as they still do today. Some shafts drop the entire depth of the city, doubling as wells at their base. Deep wells reach the water table below the lowest level, positioned so that even a siege above ground couldn't reach or poison the water inside. There are wine presses, grain stores, still showing traces of what was kept in them. Stables cut into the rock, with feeding troughs at ground level. Churches, schools, communal kitchens, their ceilings still blackened by smoke from cooking fires lit 1,000 years ago. This wasn't built for one emergency night. Every detail suggests a population planning to remain for a long time, possibly a very long time. And the layout itself tells its own story. The upper levels, closer to the surface, appear built for everyday life. The deeper you travel, the more the architecture shifts toward something else entirely. Narrower passages, easier to defend, harder to navigate for anyone who didn't already know the way. And then there are the doors. Massive circular stones, some weighing hundreds of kilograms, cut to roll across a corridor and seal it completely. Archaeologists have confirmed the mechanism directly. Each one could only be locked from the inside. A small hole at the center let those sealed within see out or defend the passage without ever opening it. Several of these doors sit at the junctions between levels, meaning that even if intruders breach the upper floors, each deeper level could be sealed off in turn, one at a time, like a series of locks within locks. If the danger was outside, what exactly were they expecting? To understand why anyone builds a city underground, we have to widen the picture. Around 3,200 years ago, nearly every major Bronze Age civilization in the Eastern Mediterranean weakened, and some collapsed entirely within a few generations. Historians point to drought, failed harvests, earthquakes recorded in unusually close succession, and waves of displaced peoples arriving on established shores. Trade networks broke down. Cities that had stood for centuries were abandoned within a lifetime. Anatolia, the very region containing Cappadocia, sat close to the center of it. The Hittite Empire, once one of the most powerful states in the region, collapsed during this same era, its capital abandoned and largely forgotten for millennia. In the centuries that followed, new peoples, including the Phrygians, reshaped Anatolia's political map entirely, and the region rarely settled into lasting stability for long. We can't say with certainty that Derinkuyu's earliest chambers date to this exact period. Much of what's confirmed archaeologically belongs to later centuries, including major expansion under the Byzantines. But the question historians keep returning to is a real one. Could a population, generation after generation, have learned that the surface wasn't always safe and built accordingly? Derinkuyu isn't the only place where people chose to build downward instead of up. Across the ancient world, going underground was rarely only practical. Very often, it was sacred. In Greece, initiates of the Eleusinian mysteries descended into darkened chambers as part of a ritual said to prepare them for death itself, and for what came after it. On Crete, Minoan builders carved ceremonial chambers deep into bedrock whose exact purpose is still debated. In Egypt, the underworld beneath the world of the living, the duat, was a realm the soul had to navigate to be reborn. And across many cultures, the labyrinth recurs, a structure you must descend into and find your way back out of, changed by the passage. None of this proves these cultures influenced one another. In most cases, the evidence for direct contact simply isn't there. What we are looking at isn't a shared history. It's a shared instinct different peoples, centuries and continents apart, arriving independently at the same idea, that the underground is where you go to survive or to be transformed. There's a reason this pattern keeps appearing. The psychologist Carl Jung spent much of his career studying symbols that recur across unrelated cultures, symbols that appear again and again in dreams and myths without any obvious connection between the people who produced them. He noticed that descent was one of the strongest of these patterns. The cave, the womb, the tomb, the unconscious mind itself. Across cultures with no contact whatsoever, humans have imagined going downward as the path toward something essential, toward truth, toward rebirth, or toward whatever must be survived before life continues. Seen this way, Derinkuyu isn't only an engineering achievement. It may be the physical form of an idea that already lived inside the people who built it, long before the first tunnel was ever cut. That when the world above becomes unbearable, you don't simply hide. You descend, you endure, and eventually you climb back into the light. Large sections of Derinkuyu remain unexcavated. Some passages are blocked by collapse. Others have simply never been mapped. Ongoing surveys using ground-penetrating radar continue to suggest that the full network beneath Cappadocia may still be considerably larger than what's already been found. Some researchers believe entire connecting corridors to other underground settlements have yet to be located at all. Questions about exactly when the first levels were carved and how continuously the city was inhabited across the centuries remain genuinely open. Archaeology rarely closes a case completely. More often, it hands us a better question than the one we started with. We began by asking what Derinkuyu is. We end by asking something larger. What does it mean that human beings, again and again, across thousands of years and thousands of kilometers, have prepared for a world that hadn't yet arrived? Perhaps ancient humanity left us many maps. Some were carved into stone. Some were buried beneath the earth, sealed behind doors that could only be opened from within. But not every civilization looked downward for its answers. Some looked up instead and imagined the same journey in reverse. In the oldest mythology of Northern Europe, one tradition remembered survival differently, not a descent into the earth, but a single tree, said to connect every level of existence, from the deepest roots to the highest branch. That tree has a name, Yggdrasil, and its roots go far deeper than anyone expects.